Hello friends, and welcome back, or if you're new here, welcome. My name is Marcello, I talk about books, mostly, and when I'm not rereading 90s YA fiction, I read a ton of mystery novels. Today I would like to share my favorite mystery books with you guys, including a brief, spoiler-free description of each entry. This list is subjective, and it may not include every great mystery book of the last century. It definitely doesn't, in fact, because I have never read a Sherlock Holmes book. This isn't for lack of trying, I just find Doyle's prose to be a little bit dry for my taste. I try every few years, and I will continue to do so. Anyway, all that is to say that this is a very subjective list based off of the books that I have found time to read in my life. If you don't see a book that you love on here, leave a comment and let me know. I will add it to my list of books to read. Also of note is that all of these books are, strictly speaking, at least by my own judgment, mystery novels. I did not include books that I think would be better classed as thrillers. I distinguish one from the other at whether or not the book has a clear question that we, as the reader, can reasonably be expected to figure out using the clues that we are given throughout the plot. A lot of modern thrillers simply ask what happened, and they have narrators so unreliable that it would be virtually impossible to figure out what happened on your own. There are a number of good thriller books that I enjoy quite a bit, and maybe I'll make a separate list for that. There are also a lot of series on this list. I am listing each series as a single entry for the sake of simplicity, and I will comment on the quality of each individual novel if I think it's pertinent when I get to that entry. Some authors have multiple entries on this list because I have chosen to do it that way. The list is loosely in order of preference, but that is always changing, especially as I read more books. I will probably update this list as time goes on. With all that out of the way, let's go. Number 9, And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie is a real groundbreaker, and she's one of my favorite authors of all time. She is clever, her prose is readable, and her characters are vivid and often very funny. Poirot is actually my favorite fictional detective, although this specifically is not a Poirot novel. This book is, however, the first broadly popular locked room mystery novel, and it has provided inspiration for countless novels since. The basic premise of the book is that a group of 8 people have received a mysterious invitation to spend the weekend on a small, isolated island, only accessible by boat. Upon arrival, someone starts killing the guests off one by one, so the killer must be one of the guests. But who? If this plot sounds familiar, it's because there have been innumerable books with the same premise, few of which are able to achieve the literary magic that Christie created the first time around. A thoroughly enjoyable and relatively easy read that you will have fun trying to figure out. I highly recommend this book. Number 8 is Mystic River by Dennis Lehane. Lehane also wrote Shutter Island, which I have not read. The book follows 3 men who live in Boston. As boys, one of them was kidnapped and subjected to various forms of abuse for 4 days before being released. The bulk of the plot takes place 25 years later when one of the men's daughters is murdered. Another of the men is now a cop investigating the murder, and the third man, the one who was kidnapped as a child, is the prime suspect. This one is a bit of a slow burn, and it's kind of a psychological mystery as well. It focuses a lot on the emotional impact of horrific crimes to great effect, but do not worry, it still has all the beats of a good old murder mystery. By the end, you will have a very difficult time putting this one down. It was adapted into a movie, which is also excellent. Number 7, The Word is Murder by Anthony Horowitz. Horowitz is my favorite modern author. He has a clear love for the mystery genre, specifically the classics, and he's an absolute master of the craft. He is currently writing canonical Holmes novels for the Doyle estate. He's also writing canonical Bond novels for the Broccoli family. That's who owns James Bond, by the way, the Broccolis. Yes, that broccoli. They also own like the broccoli phenotype or something. I don't know the specifics, but I know it's the same broccolis. Anyway, Horowitz has a very creative way of storytelling, and his mystery novels turn the genre on their head while simultaneously paying homage to the tropes that we know and love. The Word is Murder is the first in the Hawthorne and Horowitz series, in which Horowitz imagines a fictional version of his life, in which he follows a retired detective around, writing about his escapades, like a modern-day Watson, kind of. Horowitz does an incredible job of combining aspects of his actual life with the fictional world that he has created, and the product is a really fun window into the process of writing a murder mystery series, while itself being a murder mystery series. It's kind of like if Curb Your Enthusiasm were a murder mystery novel, is the best way that I could explain it, and it is wonderful. Hawthorne, the detective in this series, is also a phenomenal character, and as of the most recent installment, I have decided that I love him. There are 4 novels in this series so far, with a 5th on the way. Horowitz is actively writing these, and I think that the most recent book was actually my favorite in the series. Each of them are on par with the rest, though, and all of them are of fantastically high quality. If you like detective fiction, you will love these. Number 6 is The Cuckoo's Calling by Robert Galbraith, who is actually J.K. Rowling. I know that J.K. is persona non grata for many of you. If you want to skip these, go for it, but they are quite good, especially if you like detective fiction. The Cuckoo's Calling is the first installment in the series. It is about a private detective named Cormoran Strike who is down on his luck when a new client walks into his office requesting that he investigate the suicide of a famous celebrity. Concurrently, he hires a new assistant named Robin who is also going through some major life changes. The rest of the series follows Robin and Strike as they solve mysteries and navigate their personal relationship as well as their relationships with those around them. The books vary in quality. There are 7 of them in total, with an 8th on the way. Around book 5, they get a little tedious. Very tedious, in fact, but the most recent one was phenomenal. A real return to form. I have a whole theory about how JK is a good mystery writer and not a good fantasy writer, and that the Harry Potter novels are just mystery books in fantasy packaging. But that is a story for another video. The highlight of these books is the characters. They are relatable, fully fleshed out, and endlessly endearing. The books are long though, and in true JK fashion, they are getting progressively longer, so that's something to bear in mind if you want to pick them up. She is actively writing the series though, so I don't expect she will completely stop and leave us hanging like George R.R. Martin did. Number 5, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. Just showing off my folio copy here. It's very beautiful. Whoa. This book was an absolute game changer when it came out, and it has not been surpassed by any of its imitators, in my opinion anyway. I won't give away what makes the book so influential, but once you read it, you will understand what an incredible impact it has had on modern mystery and thriller novels. This one is a Poirot mystery, though it is told from the perspective of another character, a doctor whose patient has recently died under suspicious circumstances. The less you know going into this one, the better. So all that I'll say is that it is an easy, quick read that packs a hell of a punch for its brevity. Poirot remains charming and hilarious as ever, and Christie's cleverness and attention to detail are, of course, on full display here. I have read this book multiple times, and it remains a favorite. How many murder mysteries can you really read multiple times and still continue to appreciate them? I honestly think the second time I read this book was one of the best murder mystery experiences that I've ever had. You have to read it once to understand why reading it twice would be so good. Read it at least once, please. Number 4 is The Maid by Nita Prose. The Maid follows main character Molly, who is a maid at a hotel. One day she happens upon a dead body in one of the rooms she's assigned to, kicking off our mystery. Molly is some type of neurodivergent, though it is not specified, and her narrative voice is consequently very unique, very funny, and extremely heartwarming. The best word I could use to describe this book would be charming. Prose's prose is a joy to read. The characters are all extremely likable, and you'll likely find this book very difficult to put down. I read it in a day, and honestly, it felt like sitting in a warm bath. It was so nice. It is fairly short, but no less impactful for its length. If you usually don't like mystery novels, but you want to get back into reading them, or back into reading in general, I highly recommend this book. Of all the books on this list, I think this one is probably the most accessible and has the broadest appeal. I truly loved reading this. I have read it multiple times since. There is a sequel, which came out this year, and which I was a little bit concerned about because the original didn't leave a lot of room to expand upon Molly's world, but I am pleased to say that the sequel is nearly as good as the original. Prose is a magician, and she has created something magical here. I can't recommend it strongly enough. Number 3, The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. I have hard copies of every book that I've mentioned here, by the way. I just keep giving them to people, so I'm not sure where all of them are at any given moment. So this book is a doozy. The premise: a man wakes up without any memory of who or where he is. He lives through a very confusing day, which ends with a murder. The next day, he wakes up in a different body, but relives the same day again. He must relive the same day over and over again from a different perspective each time for 1 week, or until he discovers who the murderer is. Things take an even more confusing turn when he realizes that the actions that he takes on each day have an effect on the rest of the day for each of the other bodies that he inhabits. It's a murder mystery wrapped in a metaphysical fever dream, and this book is truly incredible, and surprisingly easy to follow for how complicated the premise is. The prose here is absolutely excellent. Turton's grasp of language is a sheer joy to read. The characters are three-dimensional and multifaceted. Even the different characters that the main character inhabits all have their own characterization, and the actual plot of the book is riveting. Without all of the metaphysical sort of time travel stuff, this would be a solid murder mystery. This book blew my mind when I read it the first time, and it blew my mind when I reread it. In all of my exploration of the genre, I have never read anything like this. And if you like weird takes on classic formulas, look no further. This is the book for you. This also leads us to number 2, The Devil and the Dark Water, Four, also by Stuart Turton. Turton is a literary wizard, and he writes books that are very difficult to classify, though they are, by definition, mysteries. This one involves a famous detective who has recently been arrested and his sidekick. They are taking a sea voyage to Amsterdam, and before they get on the boat, a leper promises that their voyage will not succeed before bursting into flames. The rest of the book is plagued by more seemingly supernatural mischief, including a very mysterious murder. Who the murderer is and what evil spirit is causing such turmoil on their voyage are the core mysteries here, but the real highlight of the book is the deterioration of order on the ship. It's kind of like Lord of the Flies on the high seas, with a murder mystery and a bunch of supernatural occurrences, each spurring more distrust and chaos among the crew of the ship. Combine this fun premise with Turton's ever-phenomenal prose, and you've got a really unforgettable book. I don't want to give too much of the plot away, but I will say that I consider this book to be as groundbreaking as a few of the Christie novels on this list. Another truly unique work by Turton, who provides a breath of fresh air in a genre that is often weighed down by its tropes. Speaking of tropes, number 1 on the list. I never have a copy of this because I'm always giving it away. Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. This is probably my favorite book of my adult life. It is a meta, self-referential head trip of a book that, in Horowitz's typical style, pays adoring tribute to the genre conventions while turning them on their heads. This book is actually 2 novels in one. The first half of the book is a novel written by a fictional author about a detective named Atticus Pund, a sort of Sherlock Holmes of this fictional universe. This book within a book is your standard British countryside mystery, and it hits all the right beats. This would fit in with any collection of classic mystery books on its own. However, right before we reach the final chapter, we are yanked out of the fictional world of the first novel and placed in the mind of Susan Ryland, the editor of the Atticus Pund books. The manuscript of the novel that we were just reading was delivered to her missing its final chapter. Susan reaches out to the author to figure out what happened, but soon learns that the author has been murdered. What follows is Ryland's search to find the author's killer, as well as the final chapter of the book, which are somehow tied to each other in a way that she has yet to figure out. This book is an absolute masterpiece, providing a vehicle for Horowitz to do his best to mimic a genre he clearly loves, while providing an outside commentary on the publishing world that produces these works, and also setting a murder mystery in that world. It is fantastic, and if you like Poirot and Holmes and Miss Marple and all of these classic fictional detectives, you will love this. My personal discovery of this book came after I started reading and binging Agatha Christie for the first time, and it was a great experience. If you've never read any of the classics, I would advise giving them a shot before you open this book, as you will appreciate it more with that context. There is a sequel, and it is also excellent. I mean, again, this is a book that doesn't seem like it would leave too much room for elaboration, but the sequel is almost as good, and it again has the same book within a book structure. I can't recommend picking these up enough, though, again, you should read some classics first just because you'll like it more. And that's it. Thank you for watching. Please feel free to put your own recommendations in the comments. I have not read every mystery book. I know there are a lot of modern classics that I missed. I know there are a lot of classics that I missed. Odds are I just haven't read them yet. Again, I'm sorry for not putting any Holmes on this list. I find Doyle's prose to be a little hard to get through. The only Holmes book that I've ever really been able to get through end to end, and which I enjoyed thoroughly, was actually written by Anthony Horowitz, and I could have included it on this list, but I thought that that might have been overkill. You guys understand that I like Horowitz at this point. Like and subscribe, please. I never say that in my videos, but I'm gonna say it now. If you watch this and you enjoyed it, it would be nice to hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by my birthday, which is July 1st, so please. Let me know if you'd be interested in other lists like this. I read all kinds of speculative fiction, and I have limitless recommendations, as well as like books that I do not like that I could talk about for hours and hours. Thank you again.